Hi, welcome to Dr. VASU'S lectures. In continuation of C language, let us see the structure of a C program. So far we have seen discussed about C. Now we have come to the main programming part. Let us see the structure, how a C program looks like. Now, structure of a C program. It has many sections like a documentation, link section, definition section, global declaration section, main function, subprogram, like this. We have these different sections, and some sections may be there and some functions may not necessary in a particular program. Let us see how they are and what these are actually. Coming to the first one, documentation. That name itself indicates documenting. We are documenting. Suppose we are writing a particular program. Who is writing the program? When you are writing that particular program, for what purpose you are writing, who is writing, right? And his name, and on which date you are writing, time and a description, what for we are writing this program, and what is your goal, what you want to achieve finally. All these information should be given. When we give this information, that particular program will be even after some time, even after 1 year or 2 years, after much time later, even if you refer this particular program, one should be clear and get every data, every information about this particular program. So that is the basic purpose of writing this documentation. User to recollect, that is, when you want to recollect, suppose after some time you may forget it, but after some time if you open that particular program, what for this is written and where is written or purpose and everything we will be able to recollect. So the documentation should be clear. It is not executed. This information, whatever I am giving my name and the date and all these things, we write something, but this should not be executed. When you are doing, suppose, some mathematical operations, these matters, this information is not necessary for this mathematical calculations. So this part should not be executed. Next, we call them as comments. These documentation comes in the form of comments. Like you take a forward slash, star, and write whatever you want, and a star and a forward slash. Whatever is written in between these two, star and forward slash, these two, whatever is written here is not executed by the system. So to write these comments or documentation purpose, we use this forward slash and star. Also, we can use two forward slashes and write something. In the end, it's not necessary. Only here we need in the beginning as well as in the end. But here we don't need this. Only in the beginning we need them. Two forward slashes and write whatever the information you want. Example. So I have written, taken a forward slash and star and forward slash and star and written in between. Whatever is written in between is ignored by the compiler. Compiler won't execute, right? This is only for our reference, for our purpose. You may call it as a comment or for a documentation purpose. Or you can even, these comments can extend even to many number of lines. But in the starting and in the end, these two must be there. Whatever is written between these two, the beginning and in the end, you may be writing in a number of lines. All this is not executed. No compilation takes place for these lines, for this information. Also, we can write by taking two forward slashes, you can write the comment whatever you want. It depends on individual who my interest may be by taking just two forward slashes, I want to write the comment. So it's an individual decision, and But one thing is, when you want to extend these comments for a number of lines, you have to use this in the beginning and in the end. Okay, so this is the documentation part. Next, okay, like, share and comment and subscribe to Dr. Vasu's lectures and get more videos. Thank you. In continuation, the next section is link section. This is also called as preprocessor directive section or header file section. Let us see. This is a mandatory. This is a compulsory in the program. Even if you don't have any comments, it doesn't matter. That declaration, that documentation purpose or comments need not be there in any program. But here this link section is a must, mandatory. Let us see what it is. Before going to that, let us see a thing called C functions. The functions in C language. They comes in two types. One is built-in functions. Second one is user-defined functions. So functions are basically two types, built-in and user-defined. Coming to this built-in functions, already the system has built-in inside. It already has it. It has some functions readily available. They are called predefined. Predefined functions are already available. Second one is user-defined functions. Suppose built-in, coming to the built-in functions, predefined in the sense, suppose I want to use a square. Suppose I want to get a number square. It is we need not define. Already it is there. The system has built-in function. A square can be directly used. We don't need to write this is the way of getting a square for a particular number, like that. Already it is available and it is called built-in. Now suppose user-defined function. I want to calculate the area of a plot. It may be rectangular area. So every time I need not write what is the length, what is the width, all these things. We directly take two values, length and width, that's it. And by taking this length and width, we should be able to calculate the area. But this sort of things are not there in the system. So we define, the user defines such sort of functions, because I want to use this area many number of times. I want to use this area many a number of times. So that's why we define the required functions, whatever we want, whenever you want. And suppose we want to repeat the same area number of times. In that case, we define these functions. So user writes these functions. For repetitive operations, I want to calculate this area of plots many a number of times. So I need not write that entire piece of program every time. Once we have written a function, just we call it as a function area. Just by calling it area, I get this all these lines of code will be executed. So for repetitive operations, we will be using these functions. For a specific purpose, for a purpose, definite purpose, we will be using them. Next, built-in functions. Coming to these built-in functions, standard library functions are there. As I told you, it's a square term or something like that. They come with the .h extension. We have a dot here, .h extension. These files will have .h extension. To use these built-in functions, we have to include them in the header files. Header files, we'll see where we get these header files and all. Suppose I want to use a square term. That square term, I want to use the square term in which function it is actually there. So I have to, in which header file, I have to utilize that file. To utilize that header file, I have to include that in our program. So we include that particular header file in our program to make use of such calculations, right? We'll see the examples. Now, some examples with the .h extensions, right? This is called a stdio.h. This is a built-in function, and we have to include hash and include this particular header file, right? When you include this particular file in your program, we will get some functions like it includes input output related functions. I want to include for every program, almost every program will have input and output. Some input will be giving something, getting something. So that's why almost all or majority of the programs will be having this, will be including this stdio.h file. This is the syntax. Syntax means it is a rule, if to a format or a rule to indicate or to write a particular thing. So this is the syntax to include a header file in the program. So hash include and brackets here and stdio.h. So whatever the functions are available in this stdio.h file, they can be utilized in your particular program, this particular program. Okay. So I'm going to utilize input output related functions. Examples: printf, scanf. You will understand what this printf and scanf in our next modules very clearly. For the time being, just understand these are the input output related functions. Next, include math.h. This name itself is indicating it's something like related to mathematics. So to do certain mathematical operations, we'll be including this math.h file in our program. So when you include this file, you will be able to perform mathematical operations, right? Their square root, logarithmic operations, all this comes under this math.h file. Suppose if you are not utilizing, you are not including this math.h file in your program, and if you want to do some sort logarithmic operations, it is not possible. It shows some error, right? Because we have to include, it's something like, I want to use this particular program, and you have to tell, right? When you tell that particular thing in your program, you will be given the permission to use that particular header file, that particular function. Next, include conio, right? .h. This is called a console input output. So it's something related to console input output monitor. It's on the monitor. You'll be getting input and output functions. Another one, string.h file. This string.h is one which is used for string operations. String in the sense a word or some length of word, some number of characters placed one by one after the other. We call it as a string, right? Now, suppose I have a word and I want to get the length of that word. This str in the sense string length. You can find a particular word's string length, that how many characters are there in it, something like that. So these are all the built-in functions which are already available in the system, and just they are readily available. We can just make use of them just by including these files. Okay, next. So let us come to the link section now. So this link section are called preprocessor directive section or header file section. We will be using this linker. Linker in the sense, these programs, we are including those files. It is called it is a program. It is nothing but a program, right? It checks the header files. Already you have seen .h files. when you are going to utilize a particular function related to some mathematical operations or console operations or some sort of in this one, we have to include these files in the header section. Okay, so now next comes a definition section. Definition in the sense you have to, it's an optional. Suppose sometimes I want to make use of a pi value 22/7. I need not every time write 22/7 or something like that. But we don't have a particularly defined value for pi, say 3 point something. We don't have any variable or any particular thing available readily. I want to define that. We can make use of it. But every time we may not be utilizing this pi. So when you don't have the necessity of using a pi, it's not necessary to include that. So in that case, we don't need to define this definition section. Definition section is not a must. So optional. Next, define. It comes with a, you have to say hash and define. Macros are symbolic constants. It uses this symbolic constants like define. Suppose I want to define pi value, right? Hash define pi. That means whenever I want to do some calculations, I can just simply use pi. Need not use this 3.14, right? Suppose if I define pi as 3.1, that takes every time when you use pi, it takes only 3.1. Here I have defined it as 3.14. So every time when I use pi, it will be utilizing 3.14 like that. So I am defining this pi value as 3.14. I want to use the length. This is a particular constant or a word. When you use the length, that word, that length means it is 5 units. Similarly, width 10. Whenever I use this length and width in this particular program, their values are fixed, and we will be using it as 5 and this as 10. They won't change. Once it is defined, user cannot change its value in the program. Length means 5 only. Width means 10 only. We cannot get, width means we cannot get 15 or 20 or something like that. It is fixed in this particular program. Okay. So this is about definition section. Next comes a global declaration section. In the global declaration section, we will be declaring the variables, right? This is again also optional. Every time we may not, suppose I am not going to do any mathematical operations or something like that. So I don't need any variable. So we don't need to define this. We need not have a declaration section. So global declaration section is not compulsory. Here we'll be defining variables. Variables comes again in 2 categories. One is local and another global. We'll see. We'll discuss what is a local and what is global and everything later in the next modules. So here comes the main function. Here is the main function. Every program will be having that main function, and we'll be writing the entire code here after this main function. Mandatory. It is a must. Without a main function, we don't have any, we cannot have any program. Next comes subprogram or user defined functions. As I told you, I want to calculate the area of a plot. For that, I need 2 variables, length and width, right? So, but every time I may not be using any sort of subprogram. I may not be in need of using a particular subprogram. So this section is not a must. We can have or need not have. So this is again optional. Next comes, so let us see the structure, actual structure of a C program, how it will be, how a simple program looks like. We'll see. Example, as I told you, as we have seen, definition, right? We are documentation. The documentation section, we are writing a comment. This is a example program, right? Description or comment we are making here, right? Next, include. I want to include stdio.h file. What is this? This is a link section. In the starting, we have a documentation section where there we made a comment. Here, I am going to include this file. This is the linking section. Global declaration. I'm going defining this, right? I'm defining a pi value. So this is definition section. Next comes the variables. Suppose a float. We'll see what this float is. Float means it has a number with the decimal places. So I have declared this float area and all this in the global declaration section. Okay. Main. Here comes the main program, right? This is the main function. The main. We'll start with the main and two brackets, right? Close brackets. And the curly brackets are required. After main, we start with the curly brackets, open with the curly brackets, and write whatever you want here. I write a certain program, whatever you require, whatever you want to perform here, you will be writing depending on our requirement. Float, as I told you, it's a decimal. It's a number with the decimal places. So R. Printf. Enter the radius. It asks when it says it asks for the enter the radius. What is the radius? It's scanf. We'll see all these things, right? And it takes the value as R, and it prints the area of a circle. It prints the area of a circle is equal to this much. Some calculation will be taking place depending on the value you are giving here to the radius, and it prints here area of the circle is equal to this much. So this is the program, our main program. Now here comes to calculate this. I want to calculate the area of circle many a times. I want to calculate. I have some 50 circles are there. For all these 50 circles, I want to calculate this. So I need not write the program every time. Just I take area, right? This area means it's the name of the function, and we are taking a area called a function called area, and I am writing a program here. This is the function. So we are writing a program. What is that? In curly brackets again we write, and return pi into pi means we have declared already. We have defined what pi is. Pi value is 3.14. So 3.14 into r and radius, again into radius. So pi into r, that is the value. It returns this value whenever you are using here this area, right? This value is returned. It gives out this value of pi r into r, pi r square. So the pi r square value reflects here. Okay. So all this percent f, all this we'll see. We'll clearly, very in detail, we'll discuss in the coming modules. So this is a typical program which is having all the sections, right? Starting from documentation, linking, definition, global declaration, main, and function. And this is the main function, main program. So some programs may be having these sections, some of the sections, and some sections may not be necessary. So we'll discuss each element, in this particular program in detail in the forthcoming modules. Thank you very much.